Jonathan, thank you so much for agreeing to be part of our WASBE Worldwide Wins video series. I'm looking forward to talking to you about 4 different works today, but why don't we just start off by you introducing yourself and pronouncing your name correctly for the public.
So my name is Jonathan Dagenais. I'm a French-Canadian composer, music educator, conductor, and my last name, Dagenais, it's like breakfast in French, but with 2 letters of difference. So déjeuner, Dagenais, close enough. You know, that's how we should say it. And yes, so I did my undergrad in composition at the University of Montreal a few years ago, master in conducting at McGill University right after, and I'm conducting 4 ensembles in the Montreal area and a bit further west. So I'm conducting the UFO Wind Orchestra, the OVNI. In fact, we say in French, the name is a pun, in fact, Unidentified Wind Orchestra. It's a semi-professional concert band composed of strong amateurs players and also what we call cross, it's like called the Cross Montreal University ensembles. We have players from all universities around Montreal playing in that ensemble. I'm conducting also the Montreal Video Game Orchestra, which is still a concert band, but dedicated to video game music. And the nice particularity about this ensemble is that everything is arranged locally, like by arrangers. We have an arranger committee and things. So it's all a unique repertoire there. The Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu concert band, the Cercle Philharmonique de Saint-Jean-sur-Richelieu, which is a really typical community band, adult community band located south shore of Montreal. It's a really an old band, meaning it exists for 125 years, I think. And finally, the Ottawa Pops Orchestra, which is my only symphony orchestra that I'm conducting in Ottawa. It's a really strong, nice amateur symphony orchestra dedicated to the pop classical music, meaning like the classical showstoppers, movie soundtrack, video game soundtrack, musicals, things like that. It's a really nice experience. So those are my 4 main ensembles I'm conducting, and what I really like, it's like 4 different artistic experiences for me. I'm also a composer and arranger, like we're gonna speak about in a few moments, specialized in concert band writing. I'm also doing, I've did a lot of honor bands and adjudication in many festivals. I'm also the Music Fest Quebec artistic director and coordinator. And finally, I'm currently teaching at McGill University in Montreal and Université de Sherbrooke, south shore of Montreal also. I'm teaching at McGill, I'm conducting the wind ensemble, and I'm teaching instrumental conducting. And at Université de Sherbrooke, I'm more a composition teacher. So I'm doing composition classes, studio composition classes also, specialized in wind orchestra.
I love the fact that you're teaching composition specializing in wind orchestra. All I have to say about that is about time. So thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you very much for that.
Exactly.
Why don't we move on to talk about Symbiopholie, which was written in 2009. Can you tell me the inspiration for this work and maybe some of the compositional devices that you might have used?
Yes, Symbiopholie is a special piece because, first of all, it was commissioned by the Harmonie Saint-Jérôme Concert Band, another community concert band that I'm not conducting it. It's north shore of Montreal in Saint-Jérôme, but one of my close friends, Jade Piché, is conducting the band, and she's a friend, a longtime friend. I played in high school with her in music ensemble,
and friends forever, right? High school.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, because now you know, in the Saint-Jérôme concert band, I'm still playing for them sometimes, like I'm doing dress rehearsal and concert and percussion or trumpet, and she plays in the UFO Wind Orchestra. She's one of my trumpet player in the UFO Wind Orchestra. So they had to celebrate their 160th anniversary, so they're considered one of the oldest concert band in Canada who did not stop their activities, because I know there's some older concert bands, but they stopped for 15 years or things like that. So they've been playing for 160 years continuously. And they commissioned me a march. And at that time, I was not a fan of marches. You know, I was younger. So I was not really a fan. So I was like, okay, what I'm gonna do. And I wanted to play a march, but not fall in the typical military festive typical march. So I wanted to underline the pride of the ensembles. Then I had no idea. It has been 3 months since they gave me the commission. And I was blank page. I had nothing to write, and I was like, "What am I gonna do?" And then after a concert and dress rehearsal with them, as I played, I think I played as a trumpet player. Two things really struck me instantly. It was the symbiosis between the player, all the players. They're all like adult amateur players, and every Monday night they get together and they play as a team. They play together, exactly like a sport team, but in musically speaking, and they lose a kind of their sense of personality to give in to unity, and also. This is a really fun concert band. Even if it's serious, there's a lot of craziness going on, a lot of fun, of jokes, of like sometimes really weird jokes, also things like that. So there was the side of the a proud symbiosis proud ensemble and crazy ensemble. So I said, all right, there are my two like main artistic ideas that I can play with. So I composed a slow march, like a German style slow march by a French Canadian composer, to try to emphasize the noble and proud aspect. And I inserted in the middle a kind of double time, fast, delirious, fun section to underline the craziness. And I really wanted to put those two elements really, one against each other, but completing each other at the same times. And what I did as a compositional features, first of all, there's a lot of thematic development of the main theme. I'm really like, as a composer myself, I'm always taking really great care of my musical ideas, not like throwing them around and going somewhere else. I teach also this kind of composition process. So, and I gave a lot of orchestration colors because I wanted to give every section a feature part somewhere. Like percussion, sax. There's a sax tutti section with no doublings anywhere else. Trumpet section, same things. Yeah, because as a community band, everyone wants to have a fun part and something to say. So I wanted to underline that. And in the same idea for Symbiosis, I wanted almost every pair of tone color possible between the sections. So sometimes you have a typical like trumpet trombones and octaves. That's a typical orchestration. You have sometimes saxophone trumpet to remind a kind of jazz sound a bit. You have flute trombone sometimes just to make the two things that we would not consider natural go together, and that's different personalities in the band. I wanted to underline that. And also, you can see that on the Pomposo transitional section. There's a lot of different tone color associations there. And a lot of percussion elements because I'm a percussion player myself, and I know our percussion has been important in all the history of military bands and things like that. So there's a lot of percussion, but in a supportive manner, never overpowering the orchestration or something. And in the middle section, as this ensemble plays a lot also of popular repertoire and jazz repertoire, I did a little close jazz voicing in the Benny Goodman type on the it's four really close voiced close voices rhythm there. And there's a bit of polytonality in the coda at the end. The last section, I use like three key signature at the same times, and we get to the last chord.
You wrote Polytechnique in 2011 after a very serious incident or tragic event that happened in Quebec. And it's by far the most serious work within your oeuvre. And you also write a programmatic element into the form of the piece as well to reflect this event. I'd love for you to tell us about this event and how it impacted you and how it reflected on this work.
Well, we should start by saying, oh, I was commissioned this piece because it tells a lot. You know, in 2010, the Afro Music in Belgium, they had a project to take 6 or 7, I think, composers from around the world to write a specific piece about a specific historical event of their country. And I was selected in Canada to write something. And at first I was like, okay, what am I gonna write? Am I gonna go for like those typical war between French and English armies and things like that? Yeah. And I said, no, there's been enough pieces made on those things. And we have also a huge political history here in Canada. So I wanted to avoid that at all costs. And at the same time, as a coincidence, I watched the Polytechnique movie made by producer Denis Villeneuve, directed by Denis Villeneuve, which is a straight black and white movie describing and showing the events of Polytechnique. And I was completely shocked by it. Because when I was younger, when the Polytechnique happened in 1989, I was really young. I don't quite remember. I remember the news in the morning and everything, but it was all blurry in my mind. And, you know, and watching the movie, I said, we have to remember this. Everybody should know about this tragedy. It's incredible. And you know, the history of that event is Marc Lépine, the killer there, shot 14 engineering students in Polytechnique, which is an engineering school, a university school in Montreal, just because he was jealous that women were now having engineering jobs and were now selected instead of men in the engineering section. And I was like, my God. And it was in 1989. It's not that long ago, you know, it's not medieval times. It's not something really rare. So it really touched me. And I was saying, oh, such an event can happen. How can somebody achieve this point in his life, in his darkness, in his like mal de vivre, like we say in French, to commit such an horrible action there? So I really divided the piece into 3 specific parts, trying not to depict exactly what happened there, but depict 3 moods, 3 specific emotional moods. Beginning by the first section, which is the darkness and heaviness section. It turns around Marc Lépine, the shooter. You know, like I cannot know his mind. Nobody can know what happened in his mind, and nobody can't really pinpoint the motivations that led him to do that. But he entered the school, and then with a shotgun, and then he walked, and he began shooting at people. You know, after he in fact, he entered in a classroom. If you didn't know about the event, he entered a classroom and said, okay, please, all the women go against that wall. And everyone was shocked, and everyone obeyed then. And that's when he killed 14, I think 13 one, because he killed another one while before he committed suicide, while he gets out of the school. And he also injured a lot of people there. So the first part is all about that, all the darkness and all the twisted aspect of it. And it's heavy, and it's written also in the part heavy, as heavy as possible. The second part of the second section of the piece is all about the panic and instability of the shootout, of the event. It's not descriptive like a movie soundtrack descriptive, but it tries to depict the persistence of the killer versus the horrible panic taking place at the same time. So there's a lot of rhythmic aspect going all together, and we sense that something terrible is happening, something like panicking, totally panicking and horrible is happening. And then everything culminates to the third section. The final section of the work is meant to be a long reflective meditation on the tragic incident of the Polytechnique massacre and the impact that such an event can have on society, on humanity, because I think we really have to remember this event and the people who were killed in that event. And we have to remember, you know, we have to remember as a society, as a race, as a human race, this kind of events, so it doesn't happen again. And unfortunately, it happens unfortunately a lot of times in North American cities, and especially that in Montreal, just in Montreal, it happened 3 times, you know, at Polytechnique, Concordia, and Dawson on the last 40 years. So that's how I built the piece, and I really divided every section of it.
You use some very interesting compositional techniques. So, for instance, this mental illness element, I really hear depicted in these aggressive glisses or mournful glisses that are happening throughout the work, as well as the pitch clusters that are happening, and the incessant rhythmic ostinatos that actually start with one ostinato and then you switch to a different ostinato, and it's almost this unexpected change when you're within this insistent pulsation that's going on. And then at the end, how you used 14 chime strikes to represent the 14 people who lost their lives that day. Would you just like to comment on some of the other elements or that you might have used to describe this event or to influence the mood of this piece?
Well, in fact, you pinpoint really, really well some elements I've used because, at the base, basically, myself as a composer, I consider myself more a harmonic composer than a melodic composer. I'm a huge fan and geek of harmony, even teaching tonal harmony, modal harmony. So harmony always was an important aspect of music for me. And it's the key of performing a Polytechnique at some levels because, I use as a bass motif to really as a basic expressive mechanism to show this like mental illness, this heaviness, a simple major chord versus minor chord. This change of the third and the middle, just this basic simple thing does a lot because even if someone in the audience has no clue about music theory, that person can feel it directly, this change in the color they receive. So I use that a lot, glissing with the trombone gliss, because there's something so twisted in a trombone gliss at some time. It's not only like a fun thing, you can achieve a lot with gliss. And I constantly use also, as you said, clusters, because I use a lot of harmonic extension, 7th, 9th, 11th, and 13th, along with continuous alteration of those harmonic, sharp 11, flat 9, and things like that provoke clusters, tonal ambiguity, and again, a strange harmonic feeling. I want it to be really like sluggish, strange, mentally like heavy. And then, like you said, in the middle section, the rhythmic ambiguity and the polyrhythms and the unstable time signatures. I really did it on purpose. There's something unstable, and I wanted the musicians to feel unstable while they play that, because even as a conductor, every time myself I'm conducting it in that middle section, I'm like, okay, I have to be. There's an unstable feeling coming from that I wanted to create, and it's part of the music for me there. And at the end, yes, those famous 14 chime strikes. It's an idea I had at the end, because sometimes to commemorate such a tragic events, we hold a minute of silence. We do that for a lot of events in our life. And here I wanted to create a minute of music for those victims. So I use the chimes to really underline those 14 victims, like in the sky or something. But more than that, I use the flat 6 of a B flat major chord. So the note really is completely a part of this tonal center there, and it gives a really incredible effect. And I didn't realize that up until the premiere of the piece. I remember so well. I was at the premiere of the piece, and it was so emotional. I was conducting it, and then I realized the artistic and emotional impact of this finale. I remember it so profoundly. I was there. I gave just my chime player a final cue. And the moment after that, I was in shock there on the podium, just listening to that. And you do nothing, because it's a complete minute. The chime player really takes his time. He takes the time to underline those 14 victims. And I remember the audience, it was the last piece of the concert. The audience after that was in shock. I was in shock. The musicians were in shock. And I said, okay, well, sometimes you don't even know when you write something, the artistic impact it can provoke right after that when you hear it for the first time or something. Mouvement Frénétique, Frenetic Movement, is a commission I received, but I received this commission from a Freinet High School music program to celebrate their 13th anniversary. And what's really, really nice about that is Freinet High School is the high school where I went when I was young in my high school. And that's where I discovered everything about music. So it was such an honor for me to have been selected as a composer to do this commission, and I was really like, it was so personal. It was a personal piece for me to do, and that's where everything started for me as a composition process also, because I studied percussion there, and the piece is based on a single short melodico rhythmic motif, and it's melodic, but it's more rhythmic than melodic when you think about that. It's all this this little fun jump bouncy element there, and this motif is varied and developed, and it varies and evolves through the piece going to the end, and it's meant like that to show my personal evolution in music. But as I said, okay, I began my music career, if we can say, my music studies, my music life at this school, without a lot of music tools. You know, when you begin, you're new to the music. There's a lot of things that, wow, that's nice, that's not nice. You don't have a lot of critical thinking. And then I evolved through time. So I wanted to show that in music, saying, oh, not like in a positive or negative way, just like, how do we change our musical taste, or how do we evolve? How do we go back from style to style? So the beginning, it begins by exposing the main motif, and quickly at bar 36 or 7, I think, for the first section of the piece, we go into what I call the typical high school 1990s style, American style, you know, because when I was at this high school younger, we played a lot of pieces by James Soringen, Ed Huckabee, David Schaefer, Jared Spears, and all those great composers, high school pedagogical composers. So I was so influenced by that language at this time that I wanted to do a little homage at the beginning. So it's really like that, with simple, clear harmony. And you know, and that was one of the goals of this music also, to really make the balance clear, make all the music layer clear, going to a nice 8-bar phrases and things like that. But then later in the piece, by bar 81, that's when I entered my university in music, Cégep and university. So I discovered new composers, I discovered new music, I expanded my language and my artistic critical thinking, you know, Stravinsky, Charles Hive, Penderecki, Karel Husa, I discovered harmonic dissonance. So at 81, we go in this piece with a lot more, like the harmonic lightning is completely dissonance there, and the motif is still there, but in another language. Then you have those big rhythmic chunk of blocks coming in, Stravinsky-esque a bit. And after that, there's a minimalism little piece, because I had a little minimalism phase with Steve Reich, John Adams, and things like that. So you can clearly hear this influence later. And then at the end, it goes back to a festive, putting all those styles together as a festive ending. It's just to show like a kind of music evolution, the music taste changing through time. That's the way I composed it. Yes, in fact, is recently I've decided in my life to do more younger band compositions, and I want to do some grade one, at least one or three, grade one, two, three every year, every summer. In fact, that's where I can write music, and then Mouvement Frénétique is published by Alfred Music, and so I wanted to submit more work, and I said, okay, I'm going to go for younger band work. So Spring March will be my first younger band work published by them. It's going to be out next spring, so spring 2022, and it's really simple. Again, a march. It's fun because I've told you earlier about Symbiopholie that I was not a march fan, but now I love marches and all the style of marches and everything. You can work on style about them. So it's a really fun, humoristic march with following the classic march structure of exposition, trio, then dogs fight, and going back to the theme. So I really tried to underline that. And it's a younger band piece because I wanted to provide, I love now to provide simple pieces that encourage active listening and team playing. You know, as adjudicators in festivals, sometimes you can hear that a lot of problem could be that we can hear in some bands could be really worked on with this type of repertoire to help them achieve those goals. So I try to focus now my work around that. So I'll then help work on basics of ensemble playing. So I try to put a lot of elements of balance, of motivic elements to give a clear form and structure of phrases so that the students can feel that and understand the form and structures, work on tone unity, style clarity, articulation unity also. And on top of that, you know, I'm trying to do younger band pieces that are interesting and pedagogical, but and it's really hard as a composer. I want them also to transcend the educational goals, if you understand what I mean. Not only, okay, this is a pedagogical piece meant to learn music. I want them to also be interesting as a piece of art, you know. And that's hard. That's hard to do because when you compose for a younger band, grade 1, 2, and I'm pretty sure a lot of composers will agree with me, you have this space to make something creative and interesting. You know, it's like walking in this tight corridor and okay, I do this and this. So it's hard, but it's such a wonderful challenge because at the same time you understand a lot of things about teaching, a lot of things about learning music, about simple elements of music. And I want to give them good music with good music that we all try to find, with a coherent structure, balance between unity and variety, playing with expectation, not always taking the obvious choice and where I'm going, giving everyone an interesting part also. That is really important for me, even for more for bass instruments sometimes. And I know it's more difficult, but sometimes in grade 1 and 1.5, we have only those pa, 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 you know, and I wanted to give something else. So it's hard, but it's great fun. I'm having such a blast trying to compose those pieces every year now. And now I'm doing that for Alpha Music and TRM Music also recently in Texas.
Now that you have this new collaboration with Alfred and you're starting the position at McGill University and we have a visitor, what is the future bringing for you with your career and your compositions?
Well, like I've said earlier, now I want to focus and writing music. I want to focus on level 1, 2, and 3 pieces every year, every summer, in fact, because that's where I've got time for me to relax and really like be inspired and write music. I'm going to do this during summer, but from September to April, for sure, I'm going to be there in terms of projects, because now with new courses at McGill University and things like that, I've got to take the next year to think about, okay, what I'm going to do now. I'm going to observe my first year and say, okay, I can keep this, I can cut there, but yes. So the next following years will be really interesting, but for sure, I'm going to keep writing every summer of new work for younger bands.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for giving me your time to discuss your works, or 4 of the many works that you've written for band and wind ensemble. And I would just like to say to our WASBE viewers that they should go to your website and research the other pieces that you've written, because I feel like you cover every level. Your works cover every level. There's something for any band director that will work with whatever band is sitting in front of them. And keep writing for us, because we love it.
Thank you, and thank you very much, Colleen, to have invited me to this. Thank you very much.